Good afternoon. I am Reverend Melody Seaton, pastor of Grace United Church of Christ, located at 2500 223rd Street in Sauk Village, Illinois. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. It is always a pleasure to be able to be among the people of God, and we honor you for giving us a few moments of your time. I am so grateful tonight for the topic that we're going to be discussing, but before I go any further, I must thank Deacon Jim Reed. Some of you are aware of who Deacon Jim is, but many of you might not be. But he is the man that keeps things running for Grace United Church of Christ. This pandemic has caught all of us by surprise. But if it had not been for his ministry of media, it would have been a lot more challenging for us to make the transition. And so I am so grateful. And when you say your prayers tonight, I pray that you will just say, Jim, thank you so much. Well, the eyes have it, you all. The eyes have it. I was speaking with our guest several days ago, and she reminded me of the expression, the eyes are the window to the soul. Upon further investigation, I found out that not only is that a Shakespearean quote, but it came from the Bible, Matthew 6:22 through 24. I found out that Shakespeare oftentimes found inspiration from the Bible. So I'd like to share Matthew 6:22 and 24 through 24 with you, if you would. It says that the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve two masters. For a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Now, in this scripture, our eyes represent the focus of our life and what we're seeking, what gives us energy, what we live for, what we value. And in this age of COVID-19, I would imagine we want to not only live better lives in the Lord, but realize that we can't do that if we aren't taking care of the life that God has given us. And the eyes, in the literal sense, have been a conversation not given the time it deserves in general, and certainly not during this pandemic. But I'm very confident that our guest, Dr. Millicent Knight, will be able to enlighten us as to what we need to know about our eyes, especially as it pertains to COVID-19 or the coronavirus. So please allow me to introduce her. Dr. Millicent Knight holds a Doctor of Optometry degree and 2 Bachelor of Science degrees. She is the Senior Vice President of Customer Development Group, Essilor of America. Her team aligns eye care professional education, sales force training, and eye care professional relations to deliver on the Essilor mission of improving lives by improving sight. Dr. Knight represents the voice of the doctor as a member of the leadership team. Prior to this, Dr. Knight was the Vice President of Professional Affairs, North America at Johnson & Johnson Vision Incorporated. And before that, she was the owner of 2 optometric practices in Evanston, Illinois. Dr. Knight is the recipient of numerous awards and member of several optometric associations. However, The accomplishment I'm most proud of is she calls me Big Sis. It is my esteemed pleasure with Big Sister Pride to introduce my middle sister, Dr. Millicent Knight. Now, I would like to ask you though, little sister, if there's anything else you'd like to share about your life in general that I might have left out.
No, I think that big sister, you hit my history. My passion is as although I'm in the corporate sector currently, one of my great passions has been the honor of taking care of over 150,000 patients in my clinical career. And it's been a joy to take care of those patients through my private practice, which I owned for 20 years, as well as the hospital-based practice that I started practicing in with both optometry and ophthalmology. And that was a wonderful opportunity to get started on really understanding, looking at the whole person, not separating their eyes as a separate entity, but looking at the eyes as a window into the body.
Thank you, thank you. And certainly I don't want to miss this part. This is really great because Dr. Knight is the mother of one of my nephews. I have three, but she is the mother of my nephew, Matthew, and I am so very proud of him. So big ups for Matthew. All right, I forgot to mention something. We would certainly like to entertain questions, but if you would, please hold your questions till the end of the segment, and we will do our best to be able to entertain them. And even if we cannot get to them right now, we're certainly going to check over the chat as well as the other social media outlets. And if there are questions that require answering, we will certainly get back to you. You might also go to our website and send your question as well as our Facebook page. So thank you so very much for that consideration. So let us move on. I did a little homework, and you can let me know if this is true, but according to the Vision Council of America, approximately 75% of adults use some sort of vision correction. It said about 64%, wear eyeglasses and 11% contacts. 1/2 of all women wear eyeglasses, and 42% of men wear glasses. So since I'm one of the 50%, I'm getting articles and things, because during this pandemic, I've certainly read a lot more than I probably would have. I've had a little bit more time. And anything that talked about eyes, it certainly caught my attention. However, I noticed though that there wasn't much being said about the eyes. And so maybe about a week and a half ago, an article popped up. And I said, you know what, I'm going to call my sister and I'm not going to talk about the stuff we usually talk about. I'm going to ask her, what about our eyes? What do eyes have to do with this season that we're in? How do eyes, our optometric care, fit into this pandemic? And why should it be part of this discussion? Because it's certainly lacking. You don't hear anything really about it. But why should it, Dr. Knight, be a part of this discussion?
You started it from the very beginning with saying that eyes are the window into the body and into the soul. And the American Optometric Association has reported that there are over 265 diseases that can be detected through the eyes. I'm not talking about eye diseases. I'm talking about systemic diseases. And so the eye examination is really important. And it's something that a lot of communities, and particularly communities of color, are not as forward thinking in making sure that they get that care. Because the one thing that by looking into the eyes, in addition to being able to tell whether or not you need glasses or not, or you're nearsighted or you're farsighted or both, We can also get a very early look at whether or not you have some of the signs and symptoms for hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, all the conditions that seem to really run through our communities pretty significantly. And the beautiful thing about that is that we can detect them before you actually have some of the signs yourself. Because by the time you start to get some of the signs that really start to make you sick, it's pretty progressive at that point. So it's really advantageous to come in early and have a comprehensive dilated eye examination. At which point, if I were to see any signs, and usually hemorrhaging in the back of the eye is a significant clinical sign for diabetes, I can alert your primary care doctor early enough so that that can be taken care of before it becomes catastrophic for you. So,
And I can certainly attest to that, Dr. Knight. I don't mean to interrupt you, but as you were speaking, as to the eyes being the window to diseases that have nothing to do with the eyes, I came to you for my usual eye exam. You know, she's my sister, and so I was blessed when she was here in Evanston so that I could go readily, but I was having troubles focusing. I was not really wearing glasses at that time, except for occasional eye strain and so forth. But all of a sudden, I began to have trouble focusing, and I was concerned. And when I came to you to have my eye exam, I didn't tell you ahead of time what was going on, but you were able to tell that that was the onset of hypertension. And that's what sent me to the doctor to have further tests. So that is so very true. I know that personally, but I'm sorry, go ahead. I needed to just put that out there.
I was also able to tell you had reached the age of wisdom when you started pushing things out. Able to prescribe your first pair of glasses. What an honor that was.
Exactly.
That's the one thing I do miss about not practicing is not being able to take care of my own family anymore. But I do it through through advice. The COVID virus really sort of threw us into kind of a pickle, if you will. But on a positive note, it's really given us an opportunity to really look at, out of this situation, doing better and being better. So for those of you who are planning on going back in for an eye examination or have already scheduled your appointment, things are going to look different when you come into the office. I have been working on some protocols for optometric practices to help them see back into practice. And some of those things are going to include coming into the office, first of all, having someone reach out to you as much information as possible before you come in for your eye examination. Because the one thing we know about the virus is that it's most deadly when it's close proximity and a longer duration of time. Like you need to be exposed to it for a period of time. And so if we can cut off part of the examination by getting as much of your case history up front, that means you're actually spending less time in the practice and you can get what you need taken care of and move on. Now the practices are going to be completely disinfected top to bottom, and they will have a system in place where you come in, after you leave. Every day, after every single patient, there will be a system in place to make sure that you are protected. And if you don't see any signs of that, that's not an office that you should be in. Because everyone at this point should be washing their hands for 20 minutes, soap and water. And that doesn't kill the virus, but what it does is it lifts it away. The disinfectants that we are going to be employing, we've got to put disinfecting sanitizers on, and usually that's got to be 70% or 75% isopropyl alcohol as part of the base. And you want to use that on a regular basis. But first, wash your hands. Wash your hands and lift the virus away, potentially. Now, we know so far that the virus is primarily in droplet form. So it tends to, I've heard it described as a plume that actually goes up within a 1 foot to 6 foot distance. And that's why we've been talking about the social distance, because that gets you out of the space. But because of that trajectory of going up and down, it tends to land down. So for those clinicians, I've been advising them to wear longer sleeves or to make sure that they have some kind of covering over them, because that also provides a layer of protection. You may want to consider that also when you're out in the streets, just, wearing a long sleeve in addition to the other precautions that you'll be taking with your PPE.
Yeah, I also read that if you don't wear glasses, that you might want to get some to put on too.
And safety glasses of some sort. It's
yeah.
And now that you bring that up, it is interesting that the first person to sound the alarm about this whole pandemic in Wuhan, China, was actually an ophthalmologist. And in China, a lot of the medical care, eye care is done in the hospital. So he happened to notice that there were just a significant number of people who were in isolation, inquired about it, but was basically told, just kind of get back and do what you're doing. And so he continued to see patients, and it was actually an asymptomatic patient who he was taking care of for glaucoma that they believe he contracted the virus from. He contracted the virus on January 7th, and I believe by February 7th, he was dead. So they did not put any precautions in place. There was no PPE. There were no isolation. There was no separation. So really take this seriously. And every single person on the team has to be trained, and the protocols have to be followed every single day, every single time. And when new members come on the team, those new members have to be trained as well. And we have to ask you as clinicians to be patient and understand that systems are going to be a little different. It'll take a little while for people to get comfortable with the flow, but they're all being done to make sure that we keep your health and your safety first. So just as a reminder when you're setting those expectations. And then when you are provided PPE, you want to make sure that you don it, just put it on, and you doff it, just take off properly. And the CDC has diagrams, and it has actually a video if you want to take a look to see how to do that properly. Because the one thing you don't want to do is self-contaminate. If you don't take that off properly, then you can contaminate yourself. And as an optometrist, I'm also going to advise you to stay away from your face. Because you have all these mucous membranes, your eye, your nose, your mouth are entry points for the virus. And we tend to, with contact lens wear or even with glasses, we fiddle around with our glasses a lot and we touch our face. So if you have to touch your face or your eye area, make sure that you are washing your hands first before you do that. You can take the glasses off for a second because there's a little duct right here called the puncta. And the virus can actually enter that little duct and go right down the nasal area, right down into the respiratory system. And it is microscopic. It is tinier than any other pathogen that we've had to deal with. So it's very easy to get in through that. It's also located you've now identified it in the tears. So you really want to be careful that you're not introducing that to the system inadvertently just by doing some of the things that we do unconsciously every day. And that's, touching our eyes and our face without making sure we wash our hands first.
Okay. So you kind of went a little fast. I wanted to kind of ease people into all of this. You gave a lot of information. So I know we have people constantly joining us. So I want to go back and reiterate some things. You said that there are 265 diseases that can be detected through the eyes. And I'm not sure that many of us, now maybe I was just the one that was surprised that was possible. Most of us think that we have to go to our primary care doctor in order to find those things out because it's not widely publicized. Let's talk a little bit about why optometric care is not, something that, why isn't there an optometrist or an ophthalmologist standing on the stage with our president or with the mayors and governors of the various localities?
It's an interesting question. And I think in part because we have started to compartmentalize the body so much. We don't look at the whole body as a whole. You have a cardiologist, you have a rheumatologist, you have a physiologist, and everyone does something different. And we forget to look at the whole person. And the entry point for us as both optometrists and ophthalmologists is by looking into the eyes. If there's something that's not right in the blood vascular system in the back of the eye, it's not right in the rest of the body, because you don't take your eyes out at night and put them on a nightstand and then pop them back in the next day. They are a constant, consistent part of the body. And so they tell a lot of stories. When I was doing one of my fellowships, it was a Harvard-trained PhD who said to a group of internal medicine physicians who were doing a fellowship with me, if I'm an internal medicine physician, I'm hooking up with an optometrist because they have slit lamps, they have the equipment, and they know how to use them. And they can early identify blood vessel changes, changes in the back surface of the lens, changes in the front surface of the lens, the consistency, and those are all predisposing factors for different systemic conditions. And if they identify those earlier, I can treat them earlier and prevent taking off a limb for those who are diabetic, or all of those things that happen when the disease has gotten out of control because too much time has gone by. So it's just, I think that is probably one of the reasons, is that many people don't realize just how valuable we tend to look at eye care as being about glasses and contact lenses, your numbers that you need for that. And that is a very important part of it. But there's also this whole other part of it that's just underutilized and undertapped. The other thing I would say too is that while we've been at home, sheltering at home, and we're on our digital device right now. And those of you who like me have been homeschooling too, in between doing work, for my company, I put in a lot of time in front of digital devices. And the one thing that we know that we're not doing very well is using good eye etiquette, I'm going to say. We're not shutting off our cell phones at an early enough hour. And you need to do that because of the blue light that's emitted from the cell phones. It sends a trigger to the brain, disrupts the signals in the brain that signal to melatonin to shut down the body and tell you it's time to go to sleep. When that's disrupted, you don't get a peaceful sleep, you don't get a restful sleep, and you wake up tired, and it repeats. And so you have a lot of people who are just under a lot of stress. The stress throws off the hormones in the system, and we're not getting our proper rest. And that is the best way to catch any type of virus, and the COVID virus is no exception. Because if your immune system is weak, that makes for an opportunistic opportunity in that case. So some things that you can do: you can go old school, you can go back to Dr. Arlie Knight, cod liver oil. You can do whatever remedies you have at home. Vitamin C, vitamin D3 have been identified as being very important. Quercetin, Quercetin. All of those are very important for boosting the immune system because you need something to be able to combat that. So taking your antioxidants that are immune boosting, getting good sleep, eating a nutritious meal, those are the absolute best things that you can do for yourself.
Thank you for sharing that, because I'm not sure that we really understand that we really have a lot of control over these kinds of things. Not to say that, none of us are immune to it, of course, but those things that you just named are basically simple kinds of things. But I want to go back to the cell phone, because that many people, their cell phone is their only phone. Not too many people have landlines anymore. Probably just people in my age group and older. So what do you suggest? I mean, this is my only phone, and this is the way for my family to contact me. So I can't necessarily turn it off. But what would you suggest that I do?
It's fine to keep the phones on. One of the things that is not fine is that we spend all day when we walk away from the computer, the first thing you do is you pick up your cell phone and you start searching social media and you start looking at other things And then you put that down and then you go back to your computer again. So the eyes need a break. After about 20 minutes of doing something consistently where you're focusing and your eye muscles are pulled in, you want to take a break and look off at infinity, look at something at least 20 feet away for at least 20 seconds. And just do that periodically. Just look out the window if you have an opportunity to do that. But flex your eye muscles so that they don't get locked into one position for long periods of time. And then it's a good practice when you go to sleep at night to just move the digital devices away. Don't keep them too close to you. It just prevents you from wanting to reach in and start listening to something. It's disruptive to your sleep when you hear the ding and the bings at night. So those are just good, just good etiquette. And it's also, like I said, helps with not getting headaches. People don't associate migraines and headaches, and children are gaming, adults too are gaming a lot. So all of those things, and just not getting outside enough. I know that our parents used to yell at us to come in the house.
Right.
Now we're telling our kids to get out of the house and go outside in the sun, because it's really how we have this epidemic now occurring with myopia, because in part, children are not outside. They are not getting vitamin D. They are not flexing those eye muscles, and they are stuck looking at digital devices all day. And, we are really reaching an epidemic. By 2050, a significant number of the entire globe is going to be nearsighted.
Wow, that's something. I'm so glad you brought up the story from Wuhan, because I did not know that until you shared that with me. Might have heard it in all of the many things that have been said over the last several weeks, but I did not realize how crucial. So again, that has bewildered me, that with an ophthalmologist being the one who kind of triggered all of this, being curious as to why all these patients were isolated, and not realizing that a patient that he was attending to had the virus because nobody informed them of what was going on. That is really amazing. But it is here, and the purpose of this evening is to continue to allow us to receive good information from qualified people. We have a lot of people saying what should happen, but they don't necessarily have the qualifications for it. I want to thank you too for sharing how the virus, the droplets project. And I like that. I didn't realize the up and down kind of emotion for that. And I think that's important. I think that I just heard that Chicago is not going to be able to open up with the rest of the state. And people are angry about it, but they're not understanding that if we would just comply with what has been asked of us, because it's for our good. And that's just the unfortunate part. But that's why we wanted to be able to do this evening. Wanted to be able to make sure that people heard on a different platform. I'm not an elected official or anybody like that. And so we wanted to just share on a different platform how important it is. And so again, I told you I was reading about, well, how do you protect your eyes? Because if droplets are spreading, distances, and as much as we're going to try, we're so accustomed to being close to people. We're so accustomed to touching and all of that. It's going to take practice and a whole lot of restraint, to be able to do those things. But in the meantime, we do want to be cognizant of why we need to do these things. And it cannot be emphasized enough. I want to, you talked about protocols. That was something that I definitely wanted to talk about, because I think that, and you know what, maybe before we do that, I asked the question about why is it that optometric care is not really emphasized a lot. Mostly, kids will go because they have to do it, every 2 or 3 years for their physical, but in between that time, There's nobody checking to make sure. Some schools, when I was in the school system, sometimes they would allow the vision people to come and give eye exams to the children. But if we couldn't figure out a way to provide glasses, oftentimes the kids could not have it because eyeglasses cost a lot of money. When you get your medical care, eye care is separate. You know, the health care bill, it's not included in it. So if you can't afford it, it's elective. And so that concerns me, especially when we know there's so many people wearing glasses. So many
Yeah,
people
so
do that.
children vote, but don't get me started on that.
Yeah, okay. I'll okay, we'll be politically correct and we'll
But I do want to say,
but as long as you all know that's not right, okay?
right.
And
But
we
I
can
will say
all-
the state of Illinois, unlike so many other states, the state of Illinois does have a rule in place where children have to be examined by the time that they turn 5 or start kindergarten.
Mhm.
States don't have that. So Illinois is very progressive in that way. But many of us fought very hard. It was the Teachers Association combined with the Optometric Association that worked together to get that bill passed. And that's the kind of thing, you know, knowing your legislators, supporting them, and making sure that they have visibility into those things that are important. And when I was in practice in Evanston, all of my legislators were patients. The representative, the senator, the congresswoman, I did say woman, all of them were patients, you know, and I took care of them. I addressed any issues that they had. I supported them, and they listened to the issues that I had, that I brought before them, that were important to my patients and that were important to the profession. And so I'm grateful for being able to have that relationship. I do want to say that if you do have an eye doctor that you're seeing and you don't have the resources to be able to pay for your glasses, you can go to the Essilor Vision Foundation, or you can ask your doctor to contact the Essilor Vision Foundation. We will provide the lenses and the frames for women, children, and men at no charge.
Wow.
Now, the doctor has to do the exam for free also. But if your doctor does the exam for free, we don't believe they should also incur the cost of paying for your lenses and your frame as well. So we will cover that. It's the Essilor Vision Foundation.
Wow, thank you so very much. So if the doctor agrees to do the exam for free, the doctor can contact Essilor Vision Foundation and you all will provide the glasses. Wow, that's awesome.
Correct.
And that is so, oh, thank you. Because I know that I could always depend on you when you were here to help students that I had, but that's a big problem for some of our children. They're not able to be successful in school because they cannot see. And they cannot see because their parents cannot afford to buy the glasses for them. So thank you so very much.
And you know, the glasses are not just a prescriptive method. So my son has, you know, your nephew has perfect vision. You know, he's 20/20. But just because you're 20/20 doesn't always mean that you have perfect vision. Mm-hmm. So, and he suffers from headaches, as I'll disclose that. I went to an optometrist that I know works specifically with vision therapy and pediatrics, and she was able to determine that his eyes were not working together, which was probably why he's having the headaches. So we were able to get glasses that had the right prisms in place to be able to correct that. And you probably know that one of the reasons that I'm an optometrist today is because at age 8, I went through vision therapy. And at the end of my 6 months of vision therapy, our dad said that I told him I was going to be an eye doctor. And I really think that it was the type of care and attention that they provided for me that was very influential. Obviously, I didn't know what they were doing at the time, but I know that they showed that they cared. And I wanted to be able to do that for other people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things you mentioned as well is the protocols. I know that you've been very instrumental in creating those for optometric shops, eye care facilities that will be opening up again or have started to open up. across the nation. And so it's really important. And you mentioned the kind of cleanliness that should occur. And I want to emphasize that we need to make sure that those kinds of things are in fact happening. And sometimes you have to ask, how did you prepare for me to come into this room after your last patient? I really, I'm grateful that you are a part of that, because I know how much you cared about your patients when you were practicing. And so I do want our audience to make sure that they don't assume anything. Our lives are too important. And so we do want to make sure that whoever we're going to, because truth be told now, depending on where you go, sometimes people don't always put as much emphasis into your care as they should. So we have to empower ourselves. We have to protect, especially in the Black and Brown community. Everybody knows that the numbers for COVID-19 infections and deaths have been the highest. And so we have got to make sure that we do everything that we can to ensure that we live out the lives that we were supposed to have. So could you, talk a little bit about why we seem to, not only when it comes to COVID-19, but many other diseases, we're always at the top of the numbers?
Sure. I want to start with first, when America gets a cold, Black and Brown America get pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is just that we have so many, we don't have access to the type of care in many cases. We don't have access to the best food sources. We don't have access to all of those things that are really important to, again, being diagnosed for conditions early enough that they can be treated, perhaps even without medication. There are a lot of conditions that we suffer from that are part behavioral, and some of them are environmental. And there are things that we can do by just changing our diets, our habits, our activities, and our mindset that can put us in a completely different position so that we're not immediately receptive. Many of you know that many of our people work in frontline positions, and they're not in a position to not go to work. So they are put in the stressful situation. And again, there's the stress again. Stress reduces your immune system and makes you more susceptible to contracting a virus. I want to go back to also a biomarker with the eye, and that is conjunctivitis. Mm-hmm. So red, we know, and studies vary, it can be anywhere from 2 days from an incubation period to 14 days. If you have redness to your eyes and you have a foreign body sensation, you have tearing with or without blurred vision. Your vision does not have to be blurry. That could be one of the signs that you have contracted the virus. So, and sometimes, in some cases, it is the only signs that you get. Mm-hmm. So we've been hearing that you have chest pain, you have respiratory issues, you've got headaches, you feel nauseous, diarrhea, all of those different things. There are cases out there where people got none of those things. And the only presenting sign that they had was a conjunctivitis. So watch for that. And that's all the more reason why eye care professionals should be consulted more often in situations like this, because again, there's a very large biomarker. Now, if you can't breathe, you probably didn't tell your doctor that your eyes are red, because that's probably a sort of a bigger concern for you when you can't breathe. Mm-hmm. I think we overlook the fact that if you really queried them enough, you might find that by the way, I did have some redness and irritation. I ignored it, but then I started to have these other issues that came up. So we want to watch those things. And then we also want to make sure that we stick with the protocols that you and I were just talking about, because of the large number of people who are asymptomatic, who are carriers of the virus. So if the person comes into your office or your home and they don't have a temperature, they're not coughing, that doesn't mean they don't have the virus. So you still need to do the things that you need to do. And, you know, making sure that you wear your mask and wear it correctly. I've seen so many people with the mask down here on their chin. Well,
I've seen that too.
in through the nose. And if your nose is exposed, you can wear this down here like a fashion statement, and all you want is not really going to protect you. So you really want to make sure that you have it secure under your, over your bridge. And also, if you wear glasses, and then place your glasses on top of that, so it secures it and it's in place, and you are basically protecting others, and hopefully the others are wearing the mask properly and protecting you at the same time. It's
Right.
really not that hard to do when you consider the alternatives. You wear the mask, you use gloves when appropriate, you exercise social distancing, or you run the risk of dying. Those are the choices.
So true. So true. Well, I want to thank you so very much. And I before we see if we have any questions, I want to once again ask you if you have any closing remarks. But I want to ask you, is conjunctivitis also known as pink eye?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure okay, just wanted to make sure.
But you can get eye redness from allergies and also from
Right.
you just kind of have to rule out. But if you got some like clear running, you know, your tears are really runny, your eyes are red, you feel like you've got something in your eye, like a foreign body sensation, those are really probably more associated with the virus.
Okay. Thank you.
And it is highly contagious.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Yeah, we used to have a lot of cases.
And a number of people have, you know, gone through that cycle of the 14 days, and then they're, you know, with treatment, they're fine afterwards. So the main thing is to pay attention to your body, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of your habits. And when you identify something that's not right, do something about it and do something about it right away.
And don't be afraid to. You know, a lot of times we're afraid to say something is wrong, or we allow others to tell us, oh, it's no big deal. It could very well be a big deal. So I'm so grateful to be able to have this conversation with you and to share you with our the social media people together. Again, this is my middle sister, Dr. Millicent Knight, and I am so very proud of her. She never wavered from wanting to be an optometrist from that very time. And even later, my grandmother had cataracts and glaucoma. And she was the only one of all the grandchildren that was able to put the eye drops in her eyes. So we knew for sure she was definitely going to be an eye doctor. So we are so grateful for that. But we wanted to see if we had any questions before we close and move on, and thank you as well. So I'm going to do a quick check. Okay.
Reverend, while you are making your check, after writing these protocols, I just wanted the audience to know, when I left practice, I promised my patients I would continue to advocate for them. And I have tried to do that in every way possible. But one of the ways that I did regarding the COVID virus is that I, after writing these protocols, and also other people have written many of them too, and so I just wanted to pressure test them. So what you can expect is I actually took a field trip, and I went to visit an office that I know was functioning and had protocols in place. And from the parking lot may now be the new waiting room, because from the parking lot, I was told to call. I called or text. They met me at the door. They handed me a PPE kit. I was told to put on my gloves, shoe booties, a mask, and my gloves, and then I was able to enter the office. I entered the office and I went to the front desk area, which had a glass partition now in place to protect them and me. And there was sanitizer there, and you might find 2 sets of pens. One, pens if you need to sign something, that have been sanitized, and then another set of pens that are used and that need to be sanitized. So you want to watch for those types of things. The office will probably be spaced differently, the social spacing. So the chairs were separated. There was no one else in the office because, again, they try and time it so that you're not in the office with other people. When you go into the optical and you select frames and your glasses, you'll hopefully be given what I like to call concierge care, where it's just you and the optician, and they will help you identify frames that are probably going to work best for your prescription and also your facial features. They will set them aside in a tray. You'll be able to try those frames on, and you'll take them from one tray. Once you've touched them, they will go into a different tray, and that tray will be disinfected. So these are the types of things that you will notice differently, and you should see signs probably in the office that will tell you that this area has been sanitized, this area has been disinfected, this area has to be disinfected, so that you know where to go. And you will be kind of escorted through the property that way. But just so that you're aware that you probably won't be able to just go and just sort of freelance on the boards, because everything you touch has to be disinfected. So those are the new systems that are going to be in place, and they seem to be working really well for patients because they're getting the personalized attention that they need. They're being educated on the types of lenses and treatments that they need to protect their eyes. And I think everyone's happier ultimately by the experience.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much. And I don't see any.
I was the guinea pig.
Pardon me?
I was the guinea.
Yeah,
I was the guinea.
That's good. I mean, you went out to make sure they were actually doing what you suggested, and I appreciate that. I did just recently receive information from my eye doctor's office, so I'm going to be looking for those things. All right. So once again, I want to thank you all so very much, and it has been quite an honor again to be able to have this discussion with my sister, Dr. Millicent Knight. And I do hope and pray that there was something that you could take from this discussion about the eyes, because the eyes have it. And just the idea that 256 diseases can be detected through the eyes before you even step into a medical doctor's office is extremely important. But right now, our focus is making sure that we continue to stay healthy, that we are able to get through this season of COVID-19, and that none of us are infected or affected in any way. And that those that might have been, certainly our prayers are covering you, but we want to keep you safe because we don't know if it can come again. There's so many uncertainties about this, but we just want to do our part to make sure that you are safe and that we make it through this. So if you have questions and you think about some things you want to know later, you can certainly go to our website and you will be able to communicate directly with me. You can go to our Facebook page, or you can email me at Rev, REVSEATON at grucc.org. And I will make sure that to get those questions to Dr. Knight so that you can have an answer. So God bless you and God keep you. Once again, Dr. Knight, are there any closing remarks before we sign off? I think we might
is to just say what an honor it is to be a sister. My big sister. It's just an honor to be with you today in our speech. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, signing off. You have a wonderful, wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Be safe. God bless.